All right, CraicHouse episode 5. So I don't really have New Year's resolutions, right? But I had a goal in mind that I wanted to try keep this year or work on. Shane, I've been kind of talking to you about it, but it was just controlling my reaction, emotions towards like business, fucking relationships, anything usually, because I'm not one to shy away from confrontation. Doesn't really do you any favors. So I've been working on that, but I started off on a fucking bad foot because I flew back to London last week from Dublin. And as I'm getting on the plane, and I have a ritual that I do every time I get on a plane is to get a cold brew, Starbucks preferably. Fucking love their cold brews.
You love them.
Yeah, oh yeah. And then I jump on the plane and I get a lot of work done. It's like I really enjoy it, especially long haul flights. But anyway, I'm walking to the desk to board the plane, and the woman says, "You can't bring that on. That's it." Just absolutely abrupt. And I said, "It's cold. It's fine." She goes, "Doesn't matter. You can't bring it on." I said, "Well, what's the logic behind that?" She goes, "It's just our policy." So I thought to myself, right, well, I'll just leave it. Fuck, it's only coffee. And then I thought that lasted for about 0.1 second. And then I thought, you know what? Now fuck that. I said, "Can you show me the policy so I can see it?" She goes, "Step aside, sir. Step aside. There's people trying to board." I'm like, "What am I going to do here? Show me the policy and then I'll leave it." She said, "Okay, wait till the end. We'll get the manager to come up." So I thought, right. And then I'm getting more pissed off because I'm seeing people walk in with juices and water and everything. I'm like, what the fuck is the difference? Anyway. Finally, everyone boards, and I said, "Look, where's the manager? Because I'm fucking going to miss this flight." And she goes, "Just wait there." The guy comes up, he walks over to me, and as he's walking over, I said, "Look, I have a coffee." She said, "I can't bring it on." And he goes, "It's cold, yeah?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, yeah, bring it on." And I said, and then I got really annoyed. Do you know why? The woman didn't say anything. It wasn't like she said, "Listen, look, my bad. I lumped it all into one. I didn't realize. Sorry about that." She just didn't say nothing, which shows a lot about her character.
You're putting very high expectations on someone to, especially, you know, like the way she acted off the bat was saying that she had a bit of a power trip and obviously had probably been having a bad day. And then when she was met with your asking her to take out the British Airways rule book, she's probably like, "Fuck this guy."
Yeah,
she should have done that. She should have gave you
anyway.
big, huge books to have all the guidelines and just handed it and said, "Look for the rules there." See, now
you know what? I was a bit petty after because I said to her, because I couldn't let it go, of course. Okay, so I said
that's
to
very
her,
unlike you, boy.
I said to her, "Listen, see the way he just had a conversation with me and that was it." I said, "Could you not have done that, or could you not have just tried to find out instead of just abruptly doing all this?" And then she started pointing a finger at me saying, "You started to get rude and all this." And I said to her, "Look, I should have just realized you're fucking crazy and it's you, not me, and just got on with this and not let it bother me." But anyway, it is what it is. Look.
So you fucked up your New Year's resolution in the first few weeks.
Yeah,
I did.
First few days, I'd say. But look, that's a hard one, Nabs. That's a hard one. You have to really, that's like trying to master, you know, like, it's just a difficult one, mate, because emotions come very quickly upon you. But it's interesting. I think a lot of people are experiencing others being short and having less buffer. You know, there's a lot more conflict in general. I think people are just, over the last 2 years, it's been tough and people are feeling it, man. You see it all the time. Obviously in Ireland, it's been different to a lot of other places, and you know that now from being in Miami, Mexico, and then coming back to Ireland. People here are definitely feeling it, and I think there's a lot more short fuses. I mean, look what happened to us. We went for a munch.
Yeah, I was just about to say that in Cork.
I mean, that was ridiculous.
Right, tell that story.
So in Cork, when we done the podcast live, we went to go get some food afterwards, and we experienced, again, like, it wasn't out of the ordinary for me because of the way Ireland has been and the restrictions around hospitality, but it was definitely out of the ordinary for Nabs and maybe for Ed. But we got some food. Me and Ed got a takeaway, and Nabs got a meal in, and there was no one in the restaurant other than us. And the girl behind the counter was so rude in trying to ask us. Nabs moved his chair about a foot to the left so he could see his car.
Not even. It was even just a couple of inches I moved it just so I could see out the window.
Like, how she even noticed you moved, it was beyond me.
Right.
And she came down and so rudely said, "You can't sit that close to the door because of COVID." And it was like almost as if we're stupid. That's the way it was sounding. Like,
she told me, you said, "No, you can't touch the tables because of COVID. You can't touch anything." I said, "Okay."
I mean, oh yeah, so I'll eat off the floor. Thank you very much. That's definitely more hygienic and safe. And I think the worst part though was, look, taking a bite of someone else's food who's is a random, or you can say, yeah, maybe you can get upset about that. If I went over to some table, someone was eating their meal and I took one of their dumplings, but I asked you for one of your dumplings. You said, "Of course, bud, take one." I took my mask down for 0.4 of a second to take a bite, and she came down again and just gave us the rudest kind of tone, and it was just it made it such a distasteful experience. But you're going to get food with the boys, it should be nice and enjoyable, and it was just horrible. Now again, that
also there was nobody there. There was nobody in the fucking place.
No one there.
Yeah.
So I don't know, is it you, Nabs, think you're the common denominator here? But
it could be. I mean, again, like as you said, it's a weird one because I've experienced lots of different countries over the pandemic, and it's very hard to get my head around why some countries have no restrictions or limited ones, and other ones have, like, like Ireland or Canada are very strict on everything that you do. I mean, like in Mexico, it was kind of business as usual, but you did have to wear masks going around the place, but all restaurants, pubs, everything was still stayed open. And again, as far as I know, the country didn't collapse. And then Florida, I mean, America's obviously different because it depends on each state, but Florida never closed down since the start. Business as usual, and life went on there. And it's fucking awesome to be there because it feels normal. And again, Florida hasn't collapsed. You know what I mean? I mean, I know briefly some of the numbers, and they're really not that different between different states or countries. And then London now is pretty good, but it was obviously restricted a lot.
But not many people have had the opportunity to travel as much as you've had in the last 2 years. And I think that's why you're having this interesting reflection on, like, how come some places are dealing with it so differently than others? And like, just to shine some light on that, like Mexico, for example, they're not a social state, so they're not going to be paying people to stay at home and not work. So they can't ask people to restrict their living because that means they'd have to support them financially. So that's probably why Mexico only had like the mask, which was like, I suppose, the bare minimum you could have done. And then places like Florida and like obviously in America, it's been so politicized, the whole pandemic, and the Republican states have kind of rebelled against any restrictions on what they would call freedoms. And again, you can definitely see that argument. You can definitely see how difficult it was for people in places like Ireland or Canada to live life for the last 2 years and how much sacrifice they had to make. And you can also see why that would result in people being really stressed and really angry and frustrated. And like that girl, for example, in the restaurant, why the sauce is just like not trying her best to follow the rules or whatever. I don't know what she saw in us, or maybe someone previous customer ticked her off. But that's what I try to do when these things happen, man. You have to try and think what happened to her today, or like what's going on with her, because there was no way, that wasn't a normal way to deal with the situation that she had. Like,
it's just, again, I just find it strange. I feel like that needs to be answered. Well, why can one country remain open and it hasn't collapsed? The hospitals haven't absolutely, and then other countries are massively restricted. I mean, again, I don't want to get too deep into this. This is a discussion, so it's just a discussion. It's like,
but it's
I like
good
to get
have
other
a
people's
discussion, man. It's one of those topics that people want. It's almost people are avoiding it because it can be divisive and stuff. But we're not trying to say, like, if we're talking about it, we're not saying we have answers or anything. We're just literally asking questions. I think,
and also, do you know what? In America as well, with the Republican states, it's like, because there's a negative connotation to the Republican states, probably due to Trump and all that kind of stuff. It's almost
100%.
People see it as a negative just because they're open, or they don't give a fuck, they don't care. But like, it's not like that when you're there. It really isn't. I find the opposite. It's very, very weird to be in the other states that are really locked down and restricted, because it doesn't make sense. Like in Ireland, they had lots of bizarre rules. You have to serve food if you're a pub. Okay,
substantial meal thing.
Substantial meal. Like €9. Again, that number was pulled out of someone's ass. Like, so you have to buy a substantial meal. I mean, all of these different things that doesn't really make a difference. I don't want to get too deep into that. I just think it's worth a discussion. I'd like to know. I think at this point, with all that we know, and is it causing more harm than good with these restrictions? I think that's.
I would definitely argue on that point that it is, because again, you're 2 years into this and having restrictions on your life for 2 years, and all of the ways in Ireland in particular, and other, like you said, Canada and other parts of the world that have dealt with it by trying to really restrict people's behaviour in order to dampen the pandemic, like dampen deaths and dampen hospitalizations, trying to keep those numbers down. Firstly, it hasn't really worked to the success. Again, you don't see a massive disparity in places around the world and how they've performed. And I think it can, like, we all know how much like stress can have an impact on the immune system and on the body and on health, fear and anxiety and all these things. And if you imagine some of the categories of the population that we probably don't talk about enough, in the pandemic we focused a lot on like the vulnerable, and that would be usually the elderly or the immunocompromised, because if they get COVID, obviously it's a much more dangerous illness. But the restrictions have impacted, think of like kids. Like, kids have grown up now. If you're a 6-year-old kid, you've had 2 years of not seeing friends, having to see everyone that you love through windows or wearing masks, not able to touch them, potentially feeling that if you do touch the people that you care about, you could kill them because you could infect them with COVID. And then you have all of the social skills they've missed out on. And imagine a kid who lives in a situation like an abusive household. I mean, there was a famous situation there, or a quite publicised one in Liverpool, where a 6-year-old kid got killed by a stepfather, and I think it was 18 months that the social worker hadn't come to the house over COVID.
Fuck. It's pretty fucking crazy.
Man.
And then you have to, whenever someone tells me a story like that, and then you think, well, there's a lot of other cases that haven't been reported.
There must be.
Of course there is. And then it's just even you with Isabel, fucking Princess Isabel. Like, her personality is beautiful. It's just like her man does. And it's like, does that cross your mind to think, because she's such a friendly, beautiful kid, you know what I mean? Hugging other kids and doing the things you should do. And like, is that going to impact it? Her personality?
Something that I definitely would worry about in a way, man, because I've said it to you before, that I think other kids have noticed, and maybe I'm just, picking up on something that's not the case, because everyone has different personalities. But parents have said it to me, like parents of kids around the same age of Isabel have said, like, oh, she's so social, like, how did you manage that with the lockdown and the pandemic? And it, like, you'd see kids who, when she approaches them, they wouldn't be open to, like, she'd just be rubbing their faces and licking their face and stuff, and they'd be like crying. They'd be like, there actually has been kids who cry when she went over to them, and she'd be turning around to me then all confused, like, what's going on here? But I just hope that I'm wrong in this, like, that the damage isn't going to be that severe in terms of social skills and anxiety levels. But I think the numbers already, when it comes to adolescents and kids' mental health services, are going quite through the roof. And
there's still a ton of, like, there's a lot of different areas. Like, I always feel like if you're, because look, I'm a single guy, I'm in mid-30s, I work remotely, I can do what I want, and I'm lucky because I can work remotely. But there's a lot of, particularly women in their 30s in a big city, there's millions of people like that who now are either can't see friends, they're alone, they're not close to family. And like, that has to have a crazy impact too. Like, I do feel if you were to tally up all of the different areas, what about all the families whose businesses are affected by it? Because the laptop generation kind of got away with this with the whole Zoom thing. But any customer serving or hospitality things, that's going to have a ripple effect in your family. If your family's business had to close, it's going to affect you, your family, it's going to affect
financial stress is so bad. Like, financial stress can cause so much fucking, like, conflict in families, and also illness in people when they're so stressed about it. But we even think what we spoke about in the last episode with the metaverse and social media and kind of the negative implications of being overexposed to those things. That's what most people have done, because you've been stuck indoors in this part of the world for most of the last 2 years. You've had to go online to get some form of entertainment.
Yeah, and it's. I was always centered with this, right? I was on the fence because my perspective was different. My family, they're older. They own a nursing home. It's like all of the things that you should be worried about, and I get that, and I understand it. So I was always very like, look, we have to do our part. Now we're going into the third year. I think it's time to really have discussions about it. If places are still restricted and locked down, I do think it's worth discussing all of the people that are getting affected by it also. So it's not like
discussion, firstly, with us, it's grand having a discussion between friends. I think that's good to break down those barriers, because it has been quite divisive and people haven't had these kind of like just chats about, like, me and you have kind of always had slightly different views in it. I did find it hard a lot of the time to communicate with anyone who had the opposite view to me, even though I come with it like trying to be, as you know, boys, I've always said that, like, I'll chat to anyone about this. I'm not trying to push my views on anyone, but I do feel there was a narrative built up where it was like one side and the other. And I don't know, is that because of the American influence or what? But I think that's changing slowly but surely. And that's what I want to do with this podcast, maybe try and get people who are listening to think, I'll chat to my uncle who has different views to me, or my brother. But where it really needs to change and where the discussion really needs to happen is within government and within the mainstream media, which hasn't been the case even to this point. It still hasn't happened.
I know. Well, I had a ton of arguments with my family members over Christmas, and I really didn't want to get into it like that. But I just felt like, and again, this is my one-sided view, but I just felt like they were a little bit insulated, particularly in Ireland, to what's just going on. They think that that's just it. That's the way it has to be done. But
and
it
there's
really
a few
isn't.
reasons for that you just touched on briefly, which is like, when you've gone 2 years into trying, like, really sacrificing, like 2 years of sacrifice, it's hard to maybe think, it was not the right thing to do necessarily. People are like, no, fuck you, like, it was the right thing. But look, what are we trying to do whenever we're trying to impose restrictions on society and on behaviours of people. It's just, I think we're trying to control negative outcomes from the pandemic, and it was been very tunnel vision towards the negative outcomes of case numbers, hospitalized, like ICU numbers and deaths, and the potentially a neglect for any other illnesses or any other impact of this pandemic on our health and the way we've handled it. So if the government, in my view, start to just allow maybe other scientists and other educated people who are well and truly able to have, a voice on the topic, if they allow the room to open up to those people, then things might start to change. But I feel like in Ireland at the moment anyway, they're talking about easing restrictions, but even in the past when they've talked about it, any sort of spike in numbers have just reverted straight back to let's close the pubs at 8 o'clock and charge everyone €9 for food, which is like,
yeah. I don't know what the answer is here, but I just feel like how can one state, a big state like Florida, I mean, there's many other states as well, Arizona, all those ones, Texas is fucking ginormous. Like, how are they business as usual? And in most cases, and I don't want to get into the vaccine thing. Like, I got the vaccine, but it is what it is. I got it to try travel. But that's not the point I'm trying to make here. Is I know that there's less vaccinations in those states, and there's an older population for sure in Florida. It's older than Ireland, and there's more retirement communities. So what's the difference? Like, those questions kind of need to be fucking answered. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, look, they're very valid questions, but I don't think, I think that's the kind of the questions that people are asking, even at the highest level of, again, I've seen loads of people online who are not just people like me and you who don't really have the education in it, but epidemiologists. There was something called the Great Barrington Declaration, which was put out in November 2020 by 3 of the highest esteemed epidemiologists in the world, and they talked about potential risks of the way we're handling it. And look, it is a discussion that we need to keep having. I think people who are listening, again, if you have one side of view, whether that view is that, the restrictions are the most stupid thing ever and they should be gone, or you have the view that the restrictions are super necessary, they're super necessary and we should keep them going, just have a chat with each other, and have open the discussion. Don't have arguments, because arguments are shit.
Yeah, they don't. And it gets very personal very quick. There was something on the last episode. It was a question you asked. It was, I wanted to touch upon it. It was I think a fan from Instagram sent it in, what was something that was
the best advice you've ever gotten.
The best advice, yeah. And we gave some good advice on that, but something came to my mind. It wasn't advice that I'd gotten, but it was something that happened to me, and it kind of ties in with a lot of the stuff that we talk about. We've talked about enjoying the journey and how we're trying to get to certain places and everything else. And it was when I was in the band, 2 things happened. When we recorded our first EP, the studio that we recorded in gave us 2 bottles of champagne as like a congratulations. And immediately, and this was more on me and the guys, I was like, look, we're not opening them. We'll open them once we do. I forgot what it was. I think it was maybe the album or something else, because I was so driven to the next part. So, okay, we didn't drink them. And then a few years later, we won, I think it was the best up-and-coming band in Ireland or something along the lines. We were on RTE, we were on TV, we played, we won like £5,000. It was fucking massive. Unbelievable achievement and feeling. Like, even now I can feel what it was like when we were winning it. And I forgot, someone bought us another 2 bottles of champagne, and the same fucking thing. I said, no, we'll crack them open when something else comes up. I forgot what it was. I think we were going to do a tour in London or something. Now, we never ended up opening those champagne because we never did the album, and I forgot why the other reason was. The day I was leaving the house, the band house that we all lived in, to move out when everything finished, the last fucking cupboard I opened before I left was a cupboard that had 4 bottles of champagne in it. And it just, it kicked me in the bollocks, because I realized that I never celebrated that little win. I wasn't present. I was focused on the future, and we should have took our clothes off, cracked them open, had the fucking crack, you know what I mean? And really enjoyed that, and said, you know what, well done.
Took your clothes off, I don't know.
What?
Took your clothes off.
Look, I had that in for the crack, whatever. But you know what I mean, Shane? I think...
definitely you have to enjoy the little wins, man. You can't keep looking at the big goals, because it just gets exhausting, man. It gets exhausting.
Yeah. And then you realize
you're allowing yourself to have a bit of fucking fun and to be like, well done, like this is a good step in the right direction. So,
I think that's really important. So it wasn't, I just remembered it as a thing. It wasn't advice, but it was something now where if you get something, you achieve something. even if it's very small. Enjoy the fuck out of it. Take a bit of time off, and then I think it's better for you to reset. Yeah, so that's that. There's a shit ton of MMA news. Do you reckon we can talk about a few of these points? Because there's a lot of stuff.
I was thinking about, before we done the podcast, I wanted to touch on the McGregor pub getting petrol bombed.
Oh yeah, big news.
Have you heard about that?
That was one of them. Yeah, well, let's do like 5-10 minutes on MMA. So if you don't like MMA, you maybe skip ahead, or if you're interested in hearing it.
MMA is unreal, though. Listen to it. I think with the McGregor pub being petrol bombed, it wasn't just petrol bomb. Firstly, there was also a device found at the front door, which is a pipe bomb. So
right.
The Gardaí, who are the police here in Ireland, have categorised it as a criminal damage attempt, which I'm like, how could you categorise that as criminal damage? That's someone trying to send a message, a very serious message, and potentially trying to cause some harm. And to understand why that might have happened, you have to look back on McGregor's last few years and where he's come from, especially. So he comes from an area in Dublin called Crumlin, and Abs, I know your family are from this area as well.
They are, yeah.
This area has been rife with a gang feud for the last decade, and a lot of the people that McGregor would have grown up with, been in school with potentially, and even trained with, are involved in this feud. So you have someone like McGregor who has a massive ego. We know how much, he doesn't take shit. He's well and truly capable of getting to violence even outside of the octagon. We saw that with the dolly being thrown through the bus. These things that you would normally see in like what you categorize as a street fight, no rules. He's well and truly able to do that. So why now is someone trying to send a message to him by putting a petrol bomb and a pipe bomb at the door of his pub? And I think, to be honest, that there's a potential risk that he's after getting involved in something that is very serious.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the reality is it doesn't make sense that a couple of people just did it for the laugh or because they were disgruntled or something like this.
Well, because it's a pipe bomb.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's a serious matter there. I think he has to be, I mean, it's documented, well documented that he pals around with kind of, people in gangs and all of this kind of stuff. And
I can give a bit more background than that again, because I think people who aren't from Ireland won't understand the story. Like, some of his friends and people that are in his family have been seen to associate with members of something called the Kinahan cartel. So the Kinahans are a family here in Ireland, and they're kind of branded as the cartel, the Irish cartel, because they are the biggest crime organisation in the country. Now, they're from this area that McGregor's from, so they're from Drumna and Crumlin. So if you're friends and associates of these people, and these people are involved in a gang feud, I mean, of course, you're a massive target for someone like McGregor. He's now back around that area. He has a pub in that area. He's seen socialising and partying in that area. And if you have a really big vendetta, imagine you're involved in a feud that maybe your uncle has been killed by these people that he's associating with, or your brother has been killed by the people he's associating with. I mean, that's dangerous territory. And life is cheap in Dublin. People have to realise that. Again, if you're not from Ireland, you mightn't understand. This gang feud has taken 20 or 30 lives so far. So people aren't afraid of getting to that level of violence. And for McGregor, I think it's dangerous territory for that reason. He's not just a massive scalp for the other gang to maybe take out, but he's also someone that will potentially provoke it, because he has the capability of saying fuck you to whoever it is. And that's a petrol and fire there.
Yeah, also I wouldn't be surprised if you saw something come up in the news. That's what's the worrying thing about it. I wouldn't be surprised if I heard something really fucked up happen.
No, I think this is something you have to keep a very close eye on. And again, just the history of that feud has been really violent. And it's not the first time either that people within the fight community have got involved. Katie Taylor, the Irish boxer, her dad was shot 6 times because of being involved with the exact same crew that McGregor could be associated with. There's a famous boxer called Jamie Kavanagh who actually is from the same area, and while he was training out in Marbella in the MTK gym, so the MTK gym is actually owned by a guy called Daniel Kinahan, and he is the son of the cartel leader. So this is how deep into the fight game these people are. So not only are they just from the area and buddies, but they're also actively involved in the fight game. And this guy Daniel Kinahan has been seen with people like Tyson Fury, Darren Till. So Jamie Kavanagh, the Irish boxer who is from the same area, was in Spain training, and in a case of mistaken identity was shot in the leg.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. And also with these, especially fighters who are famous, but actually famous people in general, they always tend to, if they have a big ego and they're wild anyway, they always tend to be palling
Frank
around.
Sinatra was always around the mafia, wasn't he?
Right, yeah, Frank Sinatra, the mafia, yeah. It almost goes hand in hand because there's power between them all. And I think at a certain level, especially when huge ego is involved, money doesn't mean fucking nothing. It's not money, it's power. It's who you're associated with. It's all that kind of shit, the status, which again is it's a dangerous thing that's happening.
Dangerous.
Shane, do you think this is like the start of something like that could potentially be really bad?
Fucking could be.
I suppose, look, we are speculating here and that's it. Like, but again, I challenge anyone to give me another perspective on why there would be a petrol bomb and pipe bomb put around the premises of Conor McGregor, other than potentially very dangerous people having something in for him, having, like, you know, wanting to send a message to him or wanting to hurt him.
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
It is. In other news, did you see fucking... by the way, I'm in the same room as Ed. Just that's why I'm looking over all the time. Hey, Ed.
Hello, fella.
How are you? Did you see Masvidal and Colby Covington got announced, lads?
Oh, I'm so excited for that fight, boy.
What a fucking
grudge
fight.
match.
You know what's interesting about that, right? In my opinion, the biggest grudge match, and people will argue it, and it is up for debate, but the reason why I'd say it's the biggest grudge match is because they've gone so fucking personal to levels you can't get any lower. Now, you think back to Khabib Conor.
Colby
right?
has gotten very personal.
Colby has. Well, Masvidal said some fucking shit too, but I get what you're saying. It's more on Colby. He takes it to another level. Now, you think about Khabib Conor, that was huge grudge match. The only difference a little bit was it was all more one-sided from Conor. Like, Khabib did say stuff, but it wasn't the same. This one is really, really, really personal. And the biggest thing about it is they were fucking great friends. I met them both within the same hour when they were both cornering each other in Vegas.
I remember that.
Remember that? Like, I don't know how I met. I walked past Colby, and at the time, Colby was saying a lot of fucking harsh shit to the Irish because he wanted to get a fight with an Irish welterweight at the time. And as soon as he heard my accent, because I was like, we were chatting, he's like, oh, listen, come here. All of the shit that I say is just for marketing. I love the Irish. I want the Irish fans. It's just all for marketing, just so you know. And he was super nice, super cool guy, real genuine. Like, he was saying, oh, do you want to get a picture? Like, he asked us, you know what I mean? Just there's something endearing about him, and I do like him. Mm-hmm. It's hard to know whether or not that's even fake. It's hard to know, but he is he's a super nice guy. And then about 30 minutes later, I was walking out of an elevator, and Masvidal was just standing there with his arms crossed like he was ready to fucking knock someone out. And I was like, oh man, I'm a fucking big fan, because I used to watch his documentaries, Miami Hustle. There's a lot of stuff he used to do back in the day. And he was cool as fuck.
Incredible, man.
Yeah, and he was again very, very personable. It was a what's your name, talking, you know, all that kind of stuff. He had an intensity about him though that was different. Amazing fight though. I think. What do you think, lads? If you had to gun to head now, who do you think's winning? Ed, you go first.
Covington straight away. I would say Covington.
Oh yeah. The only thing I have on that,
I'd love to see Jorge win, but I don't think he will.
Yeah, funny enough, I like Colby as well. But you know, I think there's two things there. I agree. I think Colby's a brilliant fighter. I think look at his performances against Usman. The only thing I'll say is that Masvidal's so like his mental game now. He does not want to lose, and I just think that's going to push him through. Instead of, I don't think he's going to accept just getting taken down and being hugged. And this is why I think that Colby's going to have to either take him out or he takes Colby out. I don't see it going to decision. I really don't.
Well, that's interesting. I thought decision straight away.
Say again?
But a very interesting aspect of this fight as well is that they know each other so well. Like, they've been training partners for so long. You can't replicate. One of the biggest things about fighting someone that you haven't trained with or don't know is that kind of unknown factor. Like, how strong are they going to be? How hard are they going to hit? But when you've trained with someone day in, day out for years and years and years, they know each other like the back of their hand. So that's what's going to make it so interesting. Be interesting to see what game plans they come and play. The obvious one would be that Covington's going to try wrestle fuck him. But we all know Jorge Masvidal is a very good takedown defense and he's good clinch work against the cage. It's an interesting fight, full on, and kind of an even more interesting fight in many ways, which it isn't the same grudge match, not the same amount of animosity, but the baddest man on the planet being contested for this weekend, Francis Ngannou against her again, and that's going to be an incredibly interesting fight.
Yeah, it is indeed. I have Gan in that fight.
Well, look,
yeah,
the reason that's so interesting from, I suppose, I'm a UFC coach, #UFC coach, but from someone who's like, obviously, doing the sport. Like, genuinely though, I get so fucking excited by a matchup like this because it's heavyweight. So firstly, both these boys can put each other's lights out with one touch. But Francis Ngannou, more than anyone we have seen in recent history, like since Mike Tyson, you haven't seen someone that scary. He is as scary as Mike Tyson when it comes to the power he can generate. The Alistair Overeem knockout, that was literally scary. Like, took his head off his shoulders with an uppercut. So I suppose kryptonite for that style is someone who's really good at controlling range, really good at understanding distance, really good at closing distance. And that's Cyril Gane. Like, he moves like a lightweight and he's super athletic. Like Francis Ngannou, we haven't seen much from him in terms of kicking. He's a very hands-heavy kind of striker, and for good reason. He knocks people out with a fucking blink of an eye. But Cyril Gane is an unbelievable kicker, and the thing about kicks is that you can keep people at range with him. So obviously, the anatomy, the leg is longer than the arm. So if you're really good at using front kicks and side kicks and also movement mixed in with that, will Cyril Gane be there to get hit? That's the question. But when it comes to Francis, all it takes, like if you zig instead of zag and he touches you, boo, good night. I'm also going to say Cyril Gane though.
I'd say Francis' dick is longer than his arm as well.
You say Franny's dick as well?
I'd say Franny's dick is longer than his arm too.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Who's your prediction then?
Cyril Gane, I think I wouldn't, because Francis Ngannou was fighting for more than just the belt. He's fighting for like the fighter pay thing. He has that dispute with the UFC over his contract, and I think he's right to be fighting in his corner. I think he's right to be trying to get better pay in general for fighters. But and I hope he does it. Like,
coming into a fight though. I hope he does too. But I think it's not a good, like, Cyril Gane just has one objective: win that belt. Where he's not thinking about all those other things.
If you watch the way Cyril Gane beat Derek Lewis, how calm he looked, how clinical he was in his approach, and how like he took his time beating the shit out of him and then finishing him strong. Like, that's something we have yet seen from Francis. Like, he does kind of get emotional, he does swing, he does let go. And look, again, if there's one person in the world you don't want to get emotional and start swinging at you, it's him. But if you have a very capable and competent striker like Cyril Gane, then that could be kind of it could be a recipe for disaster for Francis.
Well, let's see. Edward, do you have Ask Reddits for us this week?
I do.
He always does, Nebs. He always does. He pulls them out of his anus.
He does, but this is just my way of introducing him and giving him a bit of the rub.
The rubs are good. Rub and tug. Okay, we've got 3 again.
Perfect.
Very exciting. Number 1, you can have $1 billion, but you can never be drunk or high again. Are you interested? Why or why not?
You can't be drunk or high. Does that mean? But can you drink or smoke? But you just or
I don't think so.
Okay, I suppose
that's
rule that
you
out.
Might as well, if you're going to do it, like that's I suppose got total. I would say 100% with $1 billion. You said 1 billion, yeah.
Yeah, $1 billion.
Well, then I would just get like the best Kundalini yoga coach in the world to come to my house every morning, and I would get out of my head on yoga, just like be really tripping balls.
I don't know. Yeah, I hear you. It's tough. I'd have to think about it because I think I really do enjoy having a drink, having a social drink, relaxing in the evening. But ultimately, I think you can condition yourself to just get that in other ways.
Although I was thinking, what's like high? Like, can you do like mushrooms or like?
No, you can't.
Yeah, if you're going to get $1 billion, Jesus. I mean, imagine saying to someone, "I give you $1 billion if you don't get high or drunk," and next thing they say, "Oh yeah, no worries," and you see him on acid the next day. You're like, "Come here, I gave you $1 billion to stay sober." Like,
the only thing I'll say is, and I know you'll probably disagree with me, but I think having $1 billion will cause a lot of problems. I think like
you're not one of them cunts, yeah, Jesus.
I am because my money. No, when my ma used to say it when I was younger, we used to do the lottery all the time. And when it was a huge number, she'd go, "Fuck, I don't know if I want to win that much," and I could never understand it. I'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But I think
just give it to charity. So if you don't want to, like, but don't fucking say you don't want to.
But then you've got every human being you ever interact with for the rest of your days, family, friends, everyone. It's going to be a focus point. All the things that you can do that people can't do.
Can you keep it quiet? Could you keep it quiet if you won that much money?
No.
Imagine,
ultimately, you're right. I think you'd have to just give it away.
Champagne again.
What?
I just imagine people wondering, like, why is Shane driving around in limousines topless and pouring champagne out the window?
Yeah. Woo! Ultimately, I think, I think we'd all accept it, right? What we said.
I would accept it 100%.
Yeah. I'm undecided.
You're undecided.
Yeah.
Because you're 19 as well, though.
That's my whole life.
Yeah. It's a difference, Shane. When you're 19 or 25, it's different.
You could just.
What's the next question?
Yeah.
What's the stupidest argument that you've ever had, and this is taking out like politics and COVID, just because
stupidest argument.
Yeah, the stupidest or dumbest argument you've ever had.
Dumb. I had a dumb one over Christmas, lads, but I don't know if you might have to cut the fucking thing out. Okay, well, I'll say it. You might have to cut it out. Anyway, I'll say it anyway and see what happens. The argument is, I had it with one of my friends. Between two straight fellas, okay, is it more gay to give it or to take it?
The age-old argument.
The age-old argument.
Age-old argument.
Between two straight fellas.
The natural answer is to take it.
You'd say that's more gay.
Well, I don't know. Like, I think both of them are.
Well, let me explain it. Let me explain the argument I had first, right?
But can I just say one thing before you explain it? Like, both of those acts will be in the category of homosexual. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, but that's like.
But that's not the question.
The question is, what's more gay?
That's not the argument.
Okay. Explain your theory, Nabs. Anyway, which one is more gay?
Okay, but here it is. Between two straight guys, is it more gay to give it or take it? And he was saying, fighting the corner of, oh, I definitely give it. It's way more gay to take it, right? And that's completely incorrect. And there's only one answer to this, and I'm going to convince you why it's more gay to give it than it is to take it. All right, so let's say you're going to give it. What has to happen here, right? You have to get Jeff or Frank over to your house, have a chit-chat. At some point, you're going to have to get him to go upstairs. Then he has to go bend over something, take off his clothes. You have to get behind him, take your clothes off, get your dick out, get it nice and hard, boy. Then you have to spread Frank's fucking hairy man ass open, lube it up, and then work your way in there. And if you're anyway considerate, you're not just going to lash it in there. Right? You know what I mean? You have to take your time. I really love Ed, right?
Really love the visuals, Nabs. Really love.
But listen, you have to when you're explaining this argument, you have to give it all. Okay. So far, so gay. Okay. Right. Now, then you have to go stay hard throughout the whole time. Stay excited, stay aroused, stay hard. Where are you going to put your hands? You're going to rest him on his man ass or put them on your sides? Okay. Then, Shane, you have to get that aroused and excited to fucking finish.
You have to finish, but that's really...
Yeah, of course you have to finish. It's all the way and no the way. You have to finish. That's part of the argument.
He's thought about this so much.
I have, because I've had this argument many times. Right. So think about all of those different things you have to do and stay sexually aroused. Now, his argument was this. Oh, I'll just think of a girl, right? Bullshit. Unless you've got the mental fucking willpower of a Tibetan monk, right? You ain't doing that. And he doesn't have that. Now, let's look at the other.
Of a girl on the back.
Mate, it doesn't. Yeah, all right. We could do that, but that doesn't work. So, it didn't work for me the last time. Okay. Now, think about it if you're taking it. What are you doing? You just have to take it. It's going to be probably painful, uncomfortable. I mean, we've all had girls stick a few too many fingers up there and it can get uncomfortable. Am I right? Am I right, boys? No? Okay. So there's nothing really sexual about it. You're just taking it. You don't have to physically get sexual aroused. Now, is it demoralizing to your ego? Maybe. Right? But that's a different topic. And this is the thing that I think dudes get caught up on. It's their ego. They don't want to be the one to take it.
I'd love to hear what a person from the gay community would say on that. I'd love to see what
listen, I've got plenty of friends that are going to listen to this and they can give me their opinion too.
Yeah.
But to me, there's just no argument there. It's more gay to give it than it is to take it.
I appreciate your argument, but let's move on to the next Ask Reddit because I just don't have anything to say on that.
Do you like the way where when it comes to certain topics, like Shane said to me before, he wanted to discuss some like COVID stuff, and I'm always on the fence to it. But when it comes to discussing something crude, I can go. It to me, it's nothing.
Oh, you can go like, the deep.
I've never seen you so passionate.
I know. What's the last one, Ed?
What's your go-to drunk food?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Drunk food. Oh, I've been an absolute pig being drunk. I love toast. I always have toast when I'm drunk. Come back and eat. But the one thing I've done as well, which is when I'm drunk, I can be silly and I think, you know what, I need to be healthy as well. I can't just be eating toast, so I'll do the most random things. I put like spinach on top of the toast, just to say I'm being healthy in my head. Wake up the next morning, then like feeling terrible with like spinach bursts.
Yeah, because you've eaten a loaf of bread and like a handful of spinach.
A packet of spinach. I've actually eaten like full packets of spinach. I've sat down before and put olive oil when I was drunk into a bag of spinach. And ate that, just thinking like I'm being healthy, and then had a bar of chocolate as well at the same time.
Yeah, you love the chocolate. Best drunk food. I think that's the weirdest answer, but anyway, I think I don't like having one thing, like just one pizza or one thing. To me, it's very like the same. So I'd get like a lot of. I love crisps. I get a load of crisps. Hard shell tacos, like things that like are a lot of different things. Some chocolate, some ice cream that works. Yeah, I mean, if I'm going all out, I want to feel like a fucking dirty slut afterwards. That's my thing. That's the last question.
Love it, boys. We're gonna have to give some good news to the fans, man. We have to potentially give them something to look forward to, some giveaways or something.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about doing giveaways forever.
The crypto one, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm going to blame Ed on this because I said to Ed, look, I'll give the crypto and I'll give it to whoever. You need to come up with the however people can win it. So Ed, it's on you.
Sorry, lads. My fault.
Lads and ladies. There's a lot of ladies out there that want to get crypto too. All right. Anyway, great episode. We touched upon so many different eclectic points. I'm happy with that.
I loved it, boys. That was a great
Lovely
podcast.
To see you, boys.
Really enjoyed chatting to you as always.
Here we go.
Anyone listening, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram and all that kind of good stuff. We really, really appreciate it. We love you, boys. I love you. Ed, I fucking love you. Shane, I love you.
Interact with us on Instagram.
Yeah.
Get on to Ed. All right, boys. That was brilliant. I love you to bits.
See you, lads.